with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, it brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all your reading? I just can't wait to be hearing. Good morning, good morning. You know when the dance is back, it is a Friday. We've not done that in a while. Thank you so much for joining in this morning. I am glad that we're here together. Please, as always, let us know where you're joining in from and who is joining in with you. And today is a special day, special Friday with a special guest. And we do have Georgeanne Irvine joining us on Storytime today. So please hold on and stick with us and also find out a lot more about Tornero. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Please, wherever you are, I hope that you are having a wonderful time. Please go grab what you need to make this Storytime even better. Thank you so much for joining us. Go now, grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab everything that you need and come on out. And of course, if you do have a copy of the book as well, well, grab it and read along with us. Thank you so much for joining in today on Storytime. I am excited to be here with you, and we'll definitely be sharing a lot more from the San Diego Zoo and also this superstar that we have today on Storytime. So before we go into our story, just a few reminders as well too that we do have big events coming up here on Storytime. Of course, amazing guests, and today we do have Georgeanne Irvine, and then on June 15th we will have Midnight Memories with Amanda Davis and Michelle Jing Chang. So please do join us for that. And if you're anywhere near the Bay Area, if you're anywhere near Oakland, please come on out and join us at Children's Fairyland for the Children's Book Festival, and we'll be there with lots of Bay Area creators, and we can come and have fun together. Come and say hello at the Storytime booth as well. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime, and yes, excited today for this beautiful book, Teaching Tornero, the true story of a sloth superstar by Georgeanne Irvine. And yes, she's here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Georgeanne today to Storytime.
Good morning. It's so good to be here. You just had me dancing too. I love your theme song.
Yes. Oh, that is done by my good friend Tim Dixon. And yeah, it's just the moment you presented me, I was like, oh my goodness, I love this. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm actually really excited to be with you this morning.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this for weeks and weeks. So thank you for having me on Storytime.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. And I know too that you're joining us from San Diego today.
Yes, I am in San Diego. I'm not at the zoo right now, but I am in San Diego.
Yeah, so how long have you lived in San Diego?
Believe it or not, I was born in San Diego. And I used to go to the zoo as a child, and I like to joke that I was born in San Diego, but I was not born at the zoo. So I have lived here most of my life. When I was in third grade, my parents moved me up to Orange County, and I was there for 10 years before I came back down here for college. So I like to say that's my 10-year leave of absence. I love San Diego. It's a beautiful city. I love it when people come to visit the city, the San Diego Zoo, the San Diego Safari Park. It's just a really great place to live and to visit.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But before we go further, too, I know that we have our amazing audience today, too. Yes, the Storytime community. Good morning to you. How are you doing, Tara? Thank you for joining in. And Erin and Clara have been recovering from a very minor surgery this week, and Daddy has been doing story times. Beautiful and sunny out there in Massachusetts today. Well, sending you lots of positive vibes. Thank you so much for sharing, and we're glad you're here. And of course, thank you too. It takes a village, right? Thank you for still getting the kids on for story time. I love it. Erin and Clara, hugs to you. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. And Tara, feel better soon for sure. Thank you so much for joining in. Good morning to you, Amanda West. And you say, Happy Friday. Well, Nathan and Sarah, thank you. And fun with lots of sun, Illinois. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. We're celebrating the last day of school before a family trip. And what better way to kick this off than with a story about a sloth. Oh my goodness. Well put for sure. Thank you so much for joining in, Nathan and Sarah. And congratulations, another year done. Well, I hope that you're looking forward to next school year, but of course too we have the summer before that, and enjoy your trip. I'm so jealous. Thank you so much for joining in. Pamela Courtney, how are you doing? And you say, yay, long weekend. Well, thank you so much for joining in today out there in Nakitosh, Louisiana with Auntie Pam, Braylon, and Chad. Well, we love you. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Absolutely appreciate you. And I hope that you enjoyed the story today. And of course, our amazing guest, Georgeanne Irvine. So please, thank you for being here. Absolutely appreciate you. Good morning to you, Ari, and of course, Megan out there in warm and sunny Kentucky. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you for being here with us. Oakland has actually been kind of cold here. I don't know how San Diego is.
No, it's been a little chilly, colder than usual, and the sun comes out but late in the day, but I hope it'll get better in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so Ari and Megan, send a sliver of that sunshine out here too. Thank you for joining in. Oh yes, bowls of cereal, and so excited about today's story. Me too, me too. Thank you for being here, and yes, excitement all around. Thank you for joining in. So, Georgianne, before we read the book, just a quick dive into how did this story come up? Why the name Tornero? How did this book come up?
We have a collection of books called our Hope and Inspiration Collection, and you can see some of them behind me. And there's stories about individual real animals who have lived at the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park. So I keep in touch with our wildlife care team just to know what's happening with the animals that live at the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park. So when Tornero was born, they mentioned his birth to me, and I thought, a lot of people love sloths, but do people really know an individual sloth? So I met with them and I said, do you think it's possible to follow Tornero while his mother raises him and throughout his life? And the key to that is photographing him through all of that. And the wildlife care team who take care of him were very, very excited. So we all agreed, yes, we are going to do a book on Tornero the sloth. So I literally, with the team, followed him for several years, watching him grow up, shooting photos, watching his development into a wildlife ambassador.
Yeah.
And his name is actually Spanish for Turner, because we have a very generous donor who has supported the San Diego Zoo for years, whose last name is Turner. So he is named after her.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. No, I love it. And right now we'll get into the story and then we'll come back for more conversation for sure.
Great.
All right, let me bring it up. Thank you. And here we go. All yours.
So first, okay, this is the title. And let's go to the next page. Let's look at the end papers. What's really fun about our Hope and Inspiration books is that we actually have the footprints or handprints or paw prints of the animal that the story is about. So what you're seeing here it's a side print of Tornero's hands, and you can see his two claws. He's a two-toed sloth, and there are three-toed sloths. But the interesting thing is, two-toed sloths have two toes or fingers on top, but they do have three on the bottom. So these are his, what you might call, hands, and you can see his claw marks. And I'd like to point out this picture on the title page. This is actually one of my favorite photos in the book. And we actually considered it for the front cover of the book. But when we put it into the heart, it didn't really say sloth. It was a very cute, fuzzy little animal, but we decided it was probably better to use an adult picture of Tornero on the cover of the book and this one on the title page. But I just look into his eyes and he just warms my heart. Our very adorable, cute Tornero. So why don't we get started with the story?
That is very cute.
And this is the book is dedicated to Tornero, but it's also dedicated to our wildlife care specialists who dedicate their lives to taking care of not just Tornero, but our other animals that live at the San Diego Zoo and San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And I feel that this is really their story. This is Tornero's story. So I really think it was important to dedicate the book to Tornero and our wildlife care team. So let's get started. A sloth surprise. The early morning sun was just beginning to shine on the San Diego Zoo when wildlife care specialist Sonia arrived at work. She helped care for animals that were going to live at the Wildlife Explorers Base Camp, an area being built where people would learn about wildlife and their habitats. When Sonia stopped by to check on Xena, the two-toed sloth, she was still sound asleep at the top of her habitat. Sonia could only see Xena's arms and legs hanging down because the sloth was so high. She was actually sleeping up high in a hammock. To get a closer look, Sonia climbed a ladder and peeked at the sleeping sloth. What she saw made her gasp. A newborn baby sloth was clinging tightly to Xena's fur. "Hey, everyone, get over here," Sonia called out to her coworkers. "You'll never guess what I just discovered." And sloths typically have one baby. Sometimes they have twins, but in this case, Xena only had one baby clinging to her. The wildlife care specialists were thrilled about the baby sloth. "This is the most exciting day of the year," said one of them. And I mean, who wouldn't be excited about a new baby sloth? And Xena has a special job at the zoo. She is a wildlife ambassador. Care specialist by her side, Xena often comes to gatherings where children and adults can meet her and learn about sloths. People also learn about the importance of protecting Central and South American rainforests and the animals that live there, including sloths. And while Xena was being raised by her mother, she learned from the wildlife care specialist to be an ambassador. And that was the hope for Xena's baby. While Xena raised her baby, the caregivers would teach the little sloth to become a wildlife ambassador. But for now, Xena needed to rest and bond with her infant. And just so you know, there are 6 different species of sloths. And Xena and her baby are Linnaeus sloths, which are from South America. They live in the Amazon in Brazil. The baby up close. At first, the wildlife care specialist kept an eye on Xena and her infant from afar. It was important to make sure the new mom was caring for her baby. They also wanted to see that the newborn was nursing. Xena's milk would help the baby grow and get stronger. When the tiny sloth was a week old, the caregivers were able to get a close-up look at it. And you can see that in the photo on the left side of your screen, you can see that Jamie, one of our wildlife care specialists, is looking at Xena and the baby. Xena let them, the wildlife care specialists, hold her and the baby, who calmly clung to her long fur. The infant sloth had golden hair on its back, just like its dad. Get ready for this, who was named Brad Pitt after the famous movie star. So Tornero's mother is, the baby sloth's mother is Xena, and his father is Brad Pitt. The wildlife care specialist couldn't tell whether the baby was a boy or girl because the sloth was so young and small. Until they knew if it was a male and female, they decided to call it Nugget. Weighing in, when the tiny sloth was 10 days old, it was weighed for the first time. The baby clung to a soft blanket while it was on the scale. It really didn't mind being away from its mom, Xena, for a few minutes. Nugget's weight was already over a pound, and the infant was growing larger every day. The wildlife care specialist gave a few of the baby's hairs to the zoo scientists so they could look at the DNA to see if the sloth was a boy or a girl. And DNA is found in all living cells. It carries information about how a living thing will look and how it will function. There wasn't enough DNA on the hair, so several weeks later, they took some saliva from inside the baby's mouth. And you can see our wildlife care team with that Q-tip reaching in to get that saliva. This time, there was enough DNA for the scientists to determine that the baby was a boy. He was named Tornero, which means Turner in Spanish, as I mentioned a little earlier. And Turner is the last name of a generous person who donated money to the San Diego Zoo to help the animals. The good eater. When Tornero was first born, he nursed from his mother throughout the day. He started to nibble on bits of solid food like apple and jicama when he was only 10 days old. And that's really unusual. A lot of animals don't start to eat solid food until they are much, much older. But with sloths, they literally start eating solid foods, nibbling on it when they are very young. 10 days old is very, very young. By the time Tornero was a month old, he stopped nursing and ate only fruits, vegetables, and leaves, just like sloth babies do in the wild. The wildlife care specialist gave Tornero broccoli, which he liked very much. Xena, his mother, had never been fond of broccoli, but once Tornero started eating it, so did she. Tornero also loved bananas, but his mother never learned to like them. If a banana even touched Xena's food, she wouldn't eat any of it. And I'm sure that all of us have food that we really don't like. For me, it's mayonnaise. If mayonnaise touches anything on my plate, I will not eat it. And just a side note, like other sloths, Tornero and Xena sleep up to 10 to 15 hours a day. Learning to be a wildlife ambassador. By the time Tornero was a few weeks old, he was already interested in interacting with his wildlife care specialist. He would shift himself around on his mother's body to get closer to them, to get closer to the wildlife care specialist. Xena was a laid-back mother who was calm and comfortable being around people. When wildlife care specialists carried Xena from her habitat to meet and greet zoo guests who would learn about sloths, Tornero rode along on her chest. This helped Tornero get used to new sights, sounds, and smells. And because Xena was relaxed in those situations, Tornero was relaxed too. And as he got a little older, Tornero didn't mind being carried separately from his mom, which you can see our wildlife care specialist, Clint, is holding Tornero. And just look at the look on Clint's face. He just adores that baby sloth. And as a side note, sloth wildlife ambassadors like Tornero and Xena really play a crucial role in inspiring people to care about sloths and other wildlife. That is truly the role of a wildlife ambassador. As I mentioned, they are like teachers. To prepare Tornero for his life as a San Diego Zoo wildlife ambassador, his caregivers began giving him rides around the zoo in a van nicknamed the Sloth Express. This would get him used to riding in a vehicle. Someday he would travel in the van to make special appearances at schools, children's hospitals, senior living homes, and television stations. For the first trip throughout the zoo, he clung to a wildlife care specialist while another one drove them past the flamingos, down a canyon by the tigers, and up the hill near the penguins. And I was actually in the van with them while we were driving, and it was really fun to be able to watch Tornero as he looked out the window. Once in a while, they stopped so curious Tornero could meet a zoo worker. When Tornero arrived back home, a wildlife care specialist called out to Xena, who climbed down from her hammock. And Xena stretched out so the caregiver could place Tornero on her chest, where he snuggled into her shaggy fur. And I was really amazed because I watched the wildlife care specialist called out, Xena, Xena, your baby's here. And in slow motion, Xena climbed down from her hammock and over to the wildlife care specialist, where Tornero climbed back onto his mother. And it just warmed my heart to see that happening. It was really fun and very special. A visit with the vets. On a warm fall morning when Tornero was 5 months old, the wildlife care specialist noticed that Xena had a runny nose. And haven't we all had runny noses in our lives? They took her to the zoo hospital and brought Tornero too, so he could have a checkup. At the hospital, Xena was given medicine to make her go to sleep. This would make it easier for the veterinarians to examine her. Using a CT scan, the vets looked at Xena's head, chest, and belly, which showed that everything was normal. And a CT scan, and you can see her on the left picture in the CT machine. And a CT scan takes pictures of the insides of a person's or a human's body. And you can see right there that Xena is asleep while she is going through the CT machine. The veterinarians also looked inside Xena's nose and took a blood test. They discovered that Xena had a mild infection, so they gave her medicine, which eventually made Xena well again. And then when it was Tornero's turn, the veterinarians listened to his heart and lungs and looked in his nose, mouth, and ears. He was a very healthy baby sloth. Tornero was also vaccinated to prevent a disease that can make sloths very sick. And many of us have been vaccinated from diseases too, like smallpox. That's a human disease that people can catch. Tornero's big adventure. A week after Tornero's medical checkup, wildlife care specialists took him on his biggest adventure yet, to a gigantic warehouse where lots of friendly zoo employees were waiting to greet him. And the warehouse is where all of the items like plush animals and t-shirts and toys are stored before they are sold in the zoo and safari park gift shops. And that's actually, the warehouse is actually where my office was at the time and where my office is today. So I was there when Tornero came to visit. The visit would help Tornero get used to meeting new people. This was the next step in teaching him how to be a wildlife ambassador. For the 20-mile journey, Tornero rode safely in the back of the Sloth Express in a transport carrier, snuggling up to a burlap pillow. When they arrived, caregiver Kelly took Tornero and talked about sloths as the zoo workers took photos. Tornero was so relaxed that he almost fell asleep in Kelly's arms. Before Tornero headed back to the zoo with the wildlife care specialist, he was given a gift, a soft plush sloth that he could cling to when he wasn't with his mother. And you can see him clinging to his new soft plush sloth mother. And I put that mother in quotes. And pretty cute, I have to say. Tornero, the TV star. When Tornero was 6 months old, he visited a local television station for the first time. There, he appeared live on the Zoo Day segment of the midday news with wildlife care specialists Katie and Julia. While he waited for his turn to be on TV, Tornero yawned, napped, and then snacked on jicama and protein biscuits. So he was, he didn't care that he was on a TV station. He just liked eating and liked napping. Finally, the director called out, "You're on after the commercial break. Please head to the set." With the cameras rolling, the news anchors asked Katie and Julia questions about sloths so viewers could learn about them. Tornero calmly hugged his burlap pillow, munching on a yellow hibiscus flower. When the show was over, the news anchors took a few selfies with Tornero and Katie. And you can see it's pretty exciting when a sloth comes to your television studio. Everybody is very excited about that. A new home, sweet home. At this stage of Tornero's life, he and his mom, Xena, were already spending much of their time apart. And so it was now time for Tornero to have his own home. The wildlife care team created a special sloth sanctuary for Tornero in an area called Wegeforth Bowl. It had 2 hammocks for sleeping, branches for climbing, special heaters to keep him warm at night, and many different areas for him to explore. And his new home was located down the hill from where Xena's new home, the Wildlife Explorers Base Camp, was being built. Wildlife care specialist Katie carried Tornero into his new habitat. Katie stayed with him until late in the evening, feeding him special treats and holding him. When Tornero snuggled into a hammock and fell asleep, Katie went home. Early the next morning, the wildlife care specialist checked on Tornero, and they get to work really early. They get there like at 6 a.m. Tornero calmly stretched and then yawned. His first night away from his mom had gone well. And when a young sloth leaves his mother, a young sloth in the wild, it often lives in the forest near her, but she doesn't take care of it anymore. So here at the zoo, Tornero was going to live near his mother, Xena, even though she wasn't taking care of him anymore. So construction on Xena's new home, Wildlife Explorers Base Camp, was underway, but the wildlife care team got word that construction activities would be really close to Tornero's home for a little while. So the team decided to take Tornero and other animal ambassadors on an adventure to live for a short time at the zoo hospital across the canyon. Tornero's wildlife neighbors included his grandpa, Nico the sloth, Smokey the opossum, Einstein the eagle owl, and Annie and Cheyenne the lynx kittens. And these are all some of our wildlife ambassadors. Tornero was used to new people and places, so he was relaxed and comfortable during his stay at the hospital. While there, he learned to come when the wildlife care specialist called his name, and he practiced his climbing skills. When things were back to normal at Wegeforth Bowl, Tornero and the other animals moved back home. So remember how Xena knew her name? Xena, come down and get Tornero. Well, Tornero learned his name as well. And whenever they call his name, he comes. Introducing Tornero. When Tornero was 7 months old, the wildlife care specialist took him to an area on the zoo's front plaza to help him practice being around larger groups of people. Tornero clung clung to a pillow while caregiver Julia introduced the zoo's visitors to him, who were very excited to see him. Then she placed him on a special perch that was made of branches. Julia explained that Tornero was just learning to use the perch, which is why he laid on top of the branch instead of hanging from it. So most sloths hang upside down. And so at this point, Tornero was really just learning to even be on the perch. So he was, like you see in the photo, laying on the top of it. When Julia overheard a little boy ask his mother if he could have a sloth as a pet, she let everyone know that sloths are wild animals and they do not make good pets. She said that the zoo's sloth ambassadors are there to help people learn about sloths and why we need to protect their rainforest homes. And at this point, Tornero was becoming more independent, so he didn't need to cling to his plush sloth or his pillow much longer. As Tornero grew larger and stronger, he learned to hang upside down on his perch. He became very flexible. Sometimes when he climbed, it looked like he was doing the splits. Zoo visitors enjoyed seeing Tornero's natural behaviors, especially because he moved in slow motion. Sloths move in slow motion, and sloths can move a little bit faster, but even when they move more quickly, it is still like they're moving in slow motion. Tornero went through a growth spurt where he ate more and pooped more. Even though sloths usually poop just once a week, Tornero was pooping twice a week and always in the same spot. Now he just poops once a week. And one interest, I know kids like to talk about poop, but Tornero now, and I'll read it a little bit later, weighs about 18 pounds. But when he poops once a week, he loses 1 or 2 pounds. And so he always weighs less after he poops. That's a really great fact for you. Okay. In addition to broccoli, Tornero ate cauliflower, spinach, kale, and jicama. Hibiscus flowers were a special treat for him. He preferred eating red and pink hibiscus, but he would munch on a yellow flower if the other colors weren't available. And I will tell you, when I saw Tornero earlier this week and hung out with him for a little bit, he had both pink and red hibiscus flowers, but he wouldn't eat the pink. He only wanted the red. And it was interesting. I have never eaten a hibiscus flower, so I don't know if they taste different. I know they look different. So maybe someday I will have to try a hibiscus flower and see if there's a taste difference. But anyway, earlier this week, he really didn't want the pink. He only wanted the red. So when he eats the flowers, Tornero eats the stamen or the center stalk of the flower first, and then it's followed by the petals and the leaves. And so sometimes the pollen from the stamen left or will leave a pollen mustache under his nose. And if you look very closely at the photo on the left of Tornero with the flower, you can see those little specks of yellow. And those are actually specks of pollen. And you can see how it looks like a little pollen mustache. And Tornero chews with his mouth open. And once in a while, he falls asleep in the middle of a chew. And I have watched this. I have watched him chewing jicama, and it's still in his mouth. And the next thing you know, he is asleep, but the jicama is still in his mouth. And then when he wakes up, he starts eating it again. I just think that is hilarious to watch him do that. But that is like a normal Tornero behavior. A sloth superstar. Tornero is all grown up now and weighs 18 pounds, except when he poops, as I mentioned. He looks like his mom, Xena. So his face looks like his mom, Xena. And he has long, shaggy blonde hair like his dad, Brad Pitt. Tornero lives in his comfortable sloth sanctuary with plenty of room to climb and hang out when he's not out with his caregivers, making special appearances for children and adults. As one of the most popular wildlife ambassadors at the San Diego Zoo, Tornero touches the heart of everyone who meets him. He also inspires people to care about sloths, other wildlife, and their rainforest habitat. Tornero is now a two-toed sloth superstar. And if you visit the San Diego Zoo, which I hope you do, you can see him. Usually we have a 2:00 wildlife presentation at Wagaforth Bowl where he lives called Wildlife Wonders. And he is often the last wildlife ambassador they introduce. And he often doesn't want to go back in because he keeps getting treats. So he kind of hangs out so you can really get a good look at him. And anyway, so I hope you come to the San Diego Zoo to meet Tornero because he's really very, very special. And I know he'll win you over too. And in the back of the book, we have a few facts about sloths. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just really would like to tell you my favorite sloth fact. And that is that sloths are good swimmers. I had no idea that sloths could swim. Take a look at that photo down on the lower right-hand or lower left-hand side of your screen, and you can see a sloth swimming. They don't move very well on land, and they actually spend most of their time up in trees. But sometimes to get from one forest to another, because their habitat is becoming fragmented, they need to crawl along the ground, and they can't walk. They pull themselves, and that's really dangerous for a sloth. But if the forest floods, they can swim from one tree to another or from one forest to another. So that was something I didn't know when I wrote this book, and I am just fascinated by it. We don't know if Tornero can swim. There is a moat that surrounds his home, but we haven't yet tried it out, and we probably won't. But I'm betting that Tornero would also be able to swim. And that is my favorite sloth fact.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's just so many things to learn too. And I see too that we also have the map at the end to show us where some of the habitats are.
Yes, we have a map to show where the sloth. So there are 6 species, and 2 of the species are critically endangered. And then we talk about some of the threats to wild sloths. And one of the things I really would like to call out, many people visit countries in Central and South America. Like they might go on a tour, they might go on a cruise ship. And sometimes you might see people holding a baby sloth and offering you to let you have your photo taken with it for a certain fee. And I would like to advise people that that is not a good idea. In most of those instances, the baby sloths have been taken from their mothers, who have most likely been killed and maybe even used as bushmeat. So we really like to advise people, even though the baby looks cute, it's really best that you do not have your photo taken with it in a tourist situation in the country where the sloths live in the wild. So that's a really important thing that I wanted to point out to people. So if you don't get your photo taken, they're less likely to steal baby sloths from their mothers. And those baby sloths don't survive very long either. Sometimes the babies are rescued and taken to sloth sanctuaries. And Peter, I know you said you visited a sloth sanctuary with rescued sloths in, I think you said it was in Costa Rica.
It was in Costa Rica, yeah. It was, I mean, they're just so cute. It was so good to see them. And also, because you also have some of them just living out. The sanctuary has kind of wild also, and also lots of water too around. So you could kind of go in a boat and kind of see them too in the trees. And
oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. And beautiful. Many of the baby sloths can be released into the wild, the ones that are being rescued and rehabilitated, but some of them can't. So then they live their lives at the sanctuary. But it's really special to see sloths in the wild. I must say, I've seen them a couple times, and it just really warms my heart to see them just doing their thing up in the trees.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for all that. Just so much in here. But one of the things that I noticed too. I mean, you mentioned the Tornero being an ambassador. What is involved in that? I know you mentioned the book touches a lot on it, but if we were to put it in just a shorter way, like what is involved with an ambassador and why are they important?
We feel, and that's the same with this book, if people can see an animal close up
Yes.
and they can get to know it, they're more likely to become, engaged and inspired. And we can't do that obviously with all of our wildlife, but the ambassadors are truly like teachers.
Mm,
So they have a job at the zoo, and their job is to be a teacher and to inspire people. And so a wildlife ambassador might go out and show its natural behavior. So when Tornero is on stage, we're not holding him. He is climbing on vines and perches, and you're watching his natural behaviors, but you're also learning about him. And we have just seen time and time again that when people do meet an animal and see it up close and they learn about it from the people who have devoted their lives to care for them, they are much more likely to become interested and support conservation efforts. And
mm,
I would like to point out that the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance is a conservation organization. We look at our zoo and our safari park as our two front doors, so people can come to our parks to learn about wildlife, and then we work with partners all over the world to protect wildlife
mm.
in their native habitats.
Yeah,
So really, I said easy. Wildlife ambassador is truly like a teacher to inspire people to
and
care.
yeah. No, I mean, just even listening to this story, like, I want to do more. It's like, and thinking you mentioned conservation and support. So, how can a person like me support the conservation efforts? And also, we have, our little ones that are watching with us. So, how can little ones also help? How can kids help? Because they might think, well, I'm only a kid.
There are a lot of things that kids can do. And actually, in the back of the book, we list 10 things that kids and their family can do to help wildlife. And they're little things. Jane Goodall is a very dear friend of mine, and she says if we each can just do small things, we can have a big impact on the world. So one of the things that children can do is to learn about the animals that live in your own backyard. I live in San Diego, as you know, and we have really interesting wildlife here. We have opossums and coyotes and hawks. And I think if the children who live in San Diego learn about how amazing our own wildlife is, they're more likely to care about it. And we ask kids, a lot of people have cats as pets. And when you let your cat outdoors, it's much more likely to get hit by a car or injured. So we always advise people to keep their cats indoors to protect the cat, but also so the cat doesn't eat the local wildlife like the lizards and the birds and other things like that. And that is a very simple thing that you can do to help animals in your area. You can recycle. You can use a water bottle instead of a plastic water bottle. I have a fun bottle with animal stickers all around it. Or I have my special glass with my Save the Chubby Rhino on it. Take your own reusable bags to the grocery store. There are a couple of things that are actually fine, and you can see it down in number 9. You can become a citizen or community scientist, and this is with your parents' help, but trust me, this is really fun and I love to do it. If you go to Wild Watch Kenya or wildwatchburrowingowl.org, our scientists have trail cameras and they shoot photos of different animal habitats, and we need to log what animals you see in the photos. So if you go to those and you pull it up, you will see, for example, in Africa, you will see all of these pictures that were taken in Kenya. And your job is to say, oh, there's a giraffe in that photo, there's a zebra in that photo. And online, you can designate what you see in the photo. And that actually helps our scientists with our conservation efforts. And Wild Watch Burrowing Owl is actually locally in San Diego County. And we have a program where we raise burrowing owls at our San Diego Zoo Safari Park and release them back into their native habitat. So you can watch these owls and you can look at the photos and help us determine what the owls are doing and how many there are. So that's actually something that is a learning experience, but it truly helps us with our conservation efforts. And kids can go to our website at SDZW, San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.org. So that's SDZWA.org. And they can learn about other things that they can do to help animals and conservation efforts.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And then too, I know that you mentioned Tornero being on the news, and we know that there's another story that was carried on the news. And for everybody that is tuning in, to please find this, whether if you're on Facebook, just click on that link and you get to see a news story. I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that as well. That was carried on
Yes.
and then find it on YouTube as well.
One of our local television stations came out to do a story about Tornero because the book just debuted. And so they came and it was just really fun. They taped his natural behaviors, his climbing behaviors, and it was really pretty funny. In the show, you'll see that one of the foods he really likes, he didn't really want to eat that day. So you'll see his wildlife care specialist saying something like, oh, I guess you don't want to eat this today. Well, here, try this treat. And then they interviewed me about why I wrote the book and about a few other things. And I've worked at the zoo for a very long time. So they included a little bit of information about some of the things I've done during my long career at the book, at the zoo.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you mentioned 45 years, so it's over 45 years at the zoo. You know, you've seen Tornero, you've seen other ambassadors. Like, what, who for you? I know Tornero stands out, but who for you apart from Tornero has been one that you'd be like, oh yeah, there was that other, or there is this other ambassador over the years.
Well, here's what's really interesting. People
Yeah.
often ask me, what is your favorite animal? And I always say, okay, what day is it? Because I like I have a different favorite animal every single day. But I think all of the animals that I've written about in my books are near and dear to my heart. And
Yeah.
behind me, you can see an orangutan in an orange book, Karen Orangutan. She holds a very special place in my heart. She lives at the San Diego Zoo. And the book is about Karen having a hole in her heart and having open heart surgery when she was only 2 years old.
Mm.
And that was back in 1994. And I vividly remember Karen having the open heart surgery and watching it. And she had some challenges during her recovery, but she made it. And now she's 31 years old. So, I grew up at the zoo watching Karen grow up. So Karen holds a special place in my heart. But so many other animals do too. And Karen is not considered a wildlife ambassador. She
Yeah.
lives with other orangutans at the zoo. But we have a window, and she loves to sit at the window and look at all of our guests, and she loves to turn somersaults. So, I love to visit her. Every time I go to the zoo, I go to see how Karen is
Yeah.
doing. But there are
Oh,
many, many other animals that I love at
yeah.
the zoo and safari park over the
Oh,
years, and I've met many.
yes. And also just thinking too, like, what does one, I know you mentioned, like volunteer supports and so on, but what does one study to do what you do? To be.
I so I studied journalism in college. So I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller. And over the years, I have learned a lot about wildlife, but I really depend on our animal experts at the zoo and the safari park to help me with the books. They read everything I write to make sure that it's accurate. I do know a lot about animals, but I did not study biology in college, but I
Mm,
am able to translate some of the scientific things into stories so that children understand those stories. So
mm,
I look at my role as the storyteller to share everything that our other animal people are doing. And that's really important to me. I think it's interesting, even if you're not a biology student,
mhm,
you can still do things on behalf of wildlife. And even the people who work at the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, every single person who works there has a role. The people who work in our gift shops, for example,
mm,
sell our merchandise, which in turn supports all of the conservation work that we
mm,
do. And
mhm.
they are playing an integral role in conservation. So you don't just have to be an animal expert to do something that makes a difference in the world. And I started at the zoo, as you know, many years ago. And I literally thought I would have the job for a few years and move on to something else. But here I am 45 years later because I
Yeah.
am so passionate about what the zoo does on behalf of wildlife. And so I just decided I am dedicating my life to be a storyteller on behalf of wildlife. And they need our help. Wildlife is disappearing all around the world. So
Mm,
it's really
mhm.
important to teach people about conservation. And our organization works with local communities where the wildlife is found. So in Africa, we work with local communities. We partner with local communities in Kenya to save elephants and leopards and other animals.
Yeah. Oh no, I love that. And two, how have I know you mentioned journalism. Was photography part of your journalism training, or was this just a hobby that then intersected with what you were doing?
Oh, my father had a very fancy camera when I was a child, and he would shoot photos when I was on vacation. So I became very, very interested in photography at that time. And then I did take photography classes in school. And then part of my job has been working with our San Diego Zoo photographers.
Mm,
And they taught me a lot about wildlife photography. So I have enhanced my photography skills over the years by working with them and learning from them. So, yes,
mm,
I do shoot a lot of photos for the books, but a lot of people don't understand that these books are a little bit challenging to create because you need to follow the animal. They're photo driven. So, you need to follow the animal with photographs from the beginning of its story to wherever the story ends. And our photographer cannot be there at all times. So
fine.
I shoot a lot of pictures, but I also teach our wildlife care team to shoot photos and I supply them with cameras. They also shoot photos with their cell phones. So it's a really big team effort to be able to shoot enough photos to create these books. And
Yeah.
you don't see a lot of books like the Hope and Inspiration collection out there in the book market. There are a few, but we really have to make a conscious effort to follow animals. There's a new book coming out this fall. It's about a baby koala whose
Mhm.
mother died of cancer when he was 5 months old and in the pouch. And I followed Omeo for 2 years until our veterinarian told me he's finally out of the woods. He's going to make it. He's going to survive. You can finally write a book on him. So many of the animals that you read about in our stories, even Tornero, I followed him for several years so that we could do this book. So I get photos from all different sources, and I feel very fortunate that I can shoot a lot of them as well.
Yeah, and Pamela Courtney was asking too if some of your photos made it into some of your shots made it in.
Yes, believe it or not, the cover shot is one that I did. And there are several others in the book that I shot as well. The ones where you see him at the warehouse, those are all photos that I shot. So if you go through the book, there really are quite, I shot the one in the back of the book.
Yeah.
Um,
Aw.
but it's really fun to shoot the pictures. And I also use the photos as part of my research. Of course, I take notes and I interview the wildlife care specialists, but then I might shoot a photo of something so that it helps me remember what I was witnessing. So not only do I use them in the book, but I use them to help with my storytelling as well.
Mm, mhm.
So
Oh,
I have a lot of photos of Tornero.
yeah.
I probably have thousands. I was actually looking at them last night, and I think I probably shot photos of him, 12 to 15 different occasions. And every time I see him, I always take cell phone photos as well,
Yeah.
just because I love having lots of photos of him.
Yeah. Oh, no, I appreciate you. And again, just a reminder to everybody that's joining in case you just joined us, that we're here today with the creator of this amazing book, Teaching Tornero, the true story of a Sloth superstar. And we're joined by Georgeanne Irvine here on Storytime. And we just went through the book, and of course, just also getting a little bit of the process and the amazing work that is being done at the San Diego Zoo. So with you being director of publishing, and I know that you have the inspiration and what was it? Inspiration, Hope and Inspiration book.
Yes,
So
collection.
collection, yeah. So are you doing that entire series, or do you have other stories from other people? And how long do you see this going?
I write our Hope and Inspiration collection, and I would like to just go back and say that the books can be purchased wherever books are sold, but all of the
Mhm.
proceeds go back to the San Diego Zoo. We are a nonprofit organization, so I just want people to know that by
Mhm.
purchasing
Yeah.
Teaching Tornero or any of our other Hope and Inspiration books, you are actually helping wildlife. But we also have a collection of illustrated children's books, and those are fictional children's books for a younger age level. And they also teach about conservation, but at a lower level. We actually have a book about a pangolin. It's called A Wish for Pangolin. And a pangolin is a scaly mammal. It's the most widely trafficked mammal in the world, meaning poachers kill them and take them out of the wild. And so we address poaching at a child's level, and it has a very happy ending. But we do address some serious issues in our illustrated books, and those are written by a local author, Carrie Hassler, and they are illustrated by a variety of different fabulous children's books illustrators. And then
Mhm.
we also have some books out for the adult audience as well, but we really focus on our children's books. So right now, Tornero is the seventh book in the Hope and Inspiration collection. Amazing Omeo, a baby koala's true story of survival, will be out this fall. And then there are several other books that are in the works that
Mhm.
I will just have to share with you when we get closer to the publishing date. Some really, really exciting stories. And
Yeah.
I think Omeo's story is also going to touch children's hearts. And it really is a story about survival. And
Yeah.
who doesn't love a koala?
Right, right. No, we look forward to you coming back and sharing more on those stories too. Yeah, we want audio stories here too. And just for some further questions too and comments from Pamela Courtney says, "I love your story structure and formatting of the book. We look
Thank
forward to
you.
more of your nonfiction works. Kids love nonfiction." And she has two amazing kids right there at home with her today, Braylon and Chad. And also, it says having that role, your role at the zoo. Are you part of how the photos and texts are positioned in the book?
Oh, I work with a team. I work with an editor. It really takes a village to put a book together. I mean, gathering the information takes our San Diego Zoo or Safari Park Village, the wildlife care team, the veterinarians. But then we have a fabulous book designer. So I people are kind of surprised, but I write the book in page spreads. It's almost like putting a puzzle together because I need to know what photos exist to go with the text that I'm writing. And
Mm,
so what I do is the manuscript goes to the editor and then it goes to the designer like page 24 and 25, you've got the text, and then I have a folder of the photos that go with the text. And the designer, Lori Sandstrom, used to work at the zoo, San Diego Zoo, and she is a fabulous designer. And I need to give her a lot of credit, because when we did our first book, which was the Karen orangutan book, Lori's design took the book beyond my wildest expectations. When I saw what she had done with the story and how she made it come alive with her design, it just took my breath away. So Lori continues to design all of our hope and inspiration books. And like I said, it's a real team effort to create these books and make them a reality. And I really love to give credit to our entire team. And I'm really honored to say that many of the Hope and Inspiration books have won national awards. Gold Ben Franklin Awards presented by the Independent Book Publishers Association. And yes, it's really nice to win awards, but what is really even nicer is that, just as Pamela said, it shows that there is a market for nonfiction books about wildlife. So it's really encouraging, and it's inspirational. It says you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And whenever I've thanked people for this honor, I do like to thank everybody who was involved with the book. I'm like the orchestra conductor, is how, yes, I write it, but just so many other people come together as a team to make it happen.
Right. Well, it reminds me too of one of books I liked is called Owen and Z. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was about
Owen and Maisie. It's about a tortoise.
Yes.
And yes, I've seen that.
And the hippopotamus.
And the hippo.
That became friends. And so just that same. And I remember too, I had 2 copies in the class. And every time there was somebody who was just like, I want it. And so we had to figure out a schedule on who would be using it at what time, or how long you could hold on to it before you put it back in the library. But yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Pamela Courtney. I've seen that. Like, there's a lot of just learning and wanting to know facts and conservation facts and stuff about animals. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Well, what we've also found, the animal books also teach children life stories in some cases. And my niece teaches 2nd grade, and sometimes the children will come with an issue they have themselves, but they'll put it in the terms of Mosi Musa, who was raised by his grandma. So I've had people write to me and say that their child read Karen's Heart, and it gave them the courage to have open heart surgery. So they not only teach people about wildlife and conservation, but they have also taught life lessons to kids. And that's something that was very unexpected. But it was really joyful for me to hear from people when they have experiences like that reading the books.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Georgeanne. I know that we could go on, like sharing. There's just so much to learn from you and the work that you're doing, and the amazing books too. And thank you for this, because I know, like, there's just so much that I learned from it. It's one of those things. Every time you're like, oh, I know about sloths, oh, I know a sloth, but then to actually know, like, do you actually know? What do you know? And then to also put the tips and everything else that you've put in here really brings it home, and in such a friendly way. And just those are the reminders that you mentioned. And I know too, as we travel with tourists in places, and you see those things, you see people coming up to you with little animals. And so really that reminder, thank you so much. And I would definitely make a conscious effort to be aware of those things. And I hope that everybody listening, please share with somebody as well. Let them know. It's like, oh, you know what, I learned something today. And let's share with them. But what else is coming? We know, apart from this the best reading that you've done is here. What is the second best reading? Where is it coming? When is it coming? Where are you going? Where can people find you?
I sometimes go to book festivals, and I will be at the Orange County Children's Book Festival, and I'll be signing books. And when I do book festivals, I don't necessarily read the book. What I do is I have these big photos printed up, and I actually hold the photos and I tell the story, which I think is really fun too. So that is, oh boy, October 1st or 2nd in Orange County. So I will definitely be there for any kids that live in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I just was at the zoo doing a signing, and so I don't have another book reading, but I am always happy to come on your story time. I've just enjoyed myself, and I'm so
Oh,
touched and honored by your kind words about the books. And
yeah,
I
beautiful.
am more than happy to be on your story time anytime you invite me.
Oh, thank you. No, we're definitely going to be holding you to that, and we'd love to have you here. And as you can see too, I think just our community has learned so much from you. And once you come to story time, we feel like we hold on to you. You're a part of us now. So
I
please
love that.
come
That makes
back.
me really happy. It brings me
Yeah.
joy.
Oh yeah, please come back. And then also just mentioning too that if there are any like promotions, anything that is happening and you'd like us to amplify here on Storytime, amplify on the Storytime platforms, please let us know. Just tag us, tag Storytime platforms
Okay.
and everything, and we'll happily share. I think that's at least that's a small slice that we can also do to help like spread that word. But thank you
Thank
coming
you.
there from Megan and Ari. Thank you so much. I know everybody who's joined in story time. Can you believe it's been over an hour? It has been beautiful. It has been fun. I enjoyed every bit. And thank you so much. Remember too that we do have many events coming up, many guests coming here to Storytime too, many awesome guests coming to Storytime, including on June 15th when we do have Amanda Davis and Michelle Jing Chan who will be here to read their brand new book, Midnight Memories. So join us for that one. June 3rd, we will be at Children's Fairyland for the Children's Book Festival. And of course, today we had the amazing Georgeanne Irvine. And I have to tell you something too, Georgeanne. Your name, Irvine, I went to school with a friend. We call him Ivan. And I had always just called him Ivan, Ivan, and I'd never seen his name written down. And so later on, this is in college, and then I see it written. I was like, wait, your name is Irvine. No, it's Ivan. So that just messes me up because every time I see it, my brain immediately wants to say Ivan.
Ivan.
And I think I might have even done that yesterday when I was saying you were coming to story time. So I'll have to call him today and say, you did it again. You did it.
Oh, that is really funny. Some people do pronounce my last name Irvin too, but it's got the E, so
Yes.
it's got the
Yes.
long I in it. But
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah, no. So every time so I'm looking at it, I have to consciously remind myself, like, no, it's not that thing. But thank you so much. Just
Thank you.
enjoyed it, and yeah, wishing you the very best at the San Diego Zoo, and I know too the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I think special credit, special mention. And of course, too, here we've had the Wizard of Oz in the background, Hannah Boardman. Thank you for
Thank
all the
you.
work that you've been doing here, pulling the strings and making us look good here on screen. Thank you so much to everybody that joined in. We love you. We appreciate you. Georgianne, I'll catch you on the other side in a little bit. Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in Storytime. This has been Storytime for today. This has been Storytime for this week. This has been Storytime with Georgeanne Irvine. Thank you so much for joining in. Please find this wonderful book wherever you find books. Ask for them at your local libraries too. Teaching Tornero, the true story of the Sloth superstar. Thank you so much for allowing us to read it here on Storytime. And I hope that we learned one or two things that we'll carry with us throughout the day today. And of course, reminders, we can always come back and remind ourselves of the little things that we learned here today and carry them with us. And we continue to have that conservation conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Love you. I will miss you over the weekend, but we're back next week with more exciting stories, including these two that you're seeing here. Love in the Library and Sari Sari Summers are coming to Storytime. So get ready for those ones. Enjoy your weekend. Remember, we're not here on Monday. We're taking the day off. We'll be resting. So I hope that you enjoy it too. I hope that you rest. I hope that you observe it in with its rightful honor. Thank you so much for being here with us on Storytime. Appreciations all around. Hugs, hugs, hugs. And I will see you again back here on Tuesday. Thank you for being here with us. Much love. Bye-bye.
Story time with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all reading? I just can't wait to be hearing. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be hearing.